Snow hissed across the frozen ridges of the Ural Mountains, and the group trudged upward, 9 silhouettes swallowed by white. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, was just 23, but he moved with a calm confidence that inspired the others. He stopped at the crest of a hill, breath fogging in the air, and raised a gloved hand. "Camp here," he said, "before sunset. The storm's coming in." They had left the village of Vizhai 2 days ago, heading toward Mount Ortorton, known in the Mansi tongue as "Don't Go There." None of them believed in legends. They were university students, engineers, athletes, rational minds. The Ural wilderness was their challenge, not their enemy. But the mountain didn't care who they were. As the others unpacked their tents, Ludmila Dubinina, a sharp-eyed girl with a stubborn streak, noticed something strange. Faint footprints near the tree line. "Animal tracks," she murmured, kneeling down. Igor joined her. The prints were large, spaced wide apart, too long for a wolf, too narrow for a bear. "Maybe a hunter?" he offered. Ludmila shook her head. "No human walks barefoot in this cold." A chill crept up her spine as she looked toward the forest. The pines stood tall and black against the snow, whispering as the wind slipped between them. For a brief moment, she thought she saw something there, something tall and pale, but when she blinked, it was gone. That night, the group huddled around their small stove inside the canvas tent. Zina Kolmogorova, always cheerful, was telling a joke when a low thump came from outside. Everyone froze. "Probably snow falling from a branch," said Rustam, forcing a grin. "Or maybe the wind," added Yuri Krivonishenko, though his voice lacked conviction. Then came another sound, heavier, deliberate. Footsteps, slow, crunching in the snow. Igor reached for the flashlight and unzipped the tent flap. The beam cut through the darkness, scattering off white flakes. Nothing, only the swirling snow and silence. They laughed it off eventually, but none of them truly slept that night. By morning, the wind had died. The air was still, eerily still. The group packed up and began their climb toward the pass. Yuri Yudin, the 10th member, had been struggling with leg pain since yesterday. I can't go on," he admitted to Igor. "If I push further, I'll make it worse." Igor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Go back to Vizhai. We'll finish this and meet you in Sverdlovska." Yuri would be the last person to see them alive. They reached the slope of Kholat Shakhlal, the mountain of the dead, as the locals called it. The sky turned gray, a storm gathering again. They decided to pitch the tent right there on the slope instead of descending into the forest below. "Better visibility," Igor explained, driving his ice axe into the snow. "If we camp here, we won't lose our way in the storm." As they worked, Nikolai Thibault, the quiet engineer, frowned. "Did anyone notice the compass needle today? It's been off, like there's interference." Rustam laughed. "Maybe the ghosts are magnetic?" But Nikolai didn't smile. When night fell, the wind returned with a vengeance. The tent shuddered like a living thing. The stove rattled, and then came a faint, rhythmic sound outside. Tap, tap, tap. Ludmila sat upright. "You hear that?" Igor nodded, eyes narrowed. "It's circling us." Someone, or something, was walking around their tent in the blizzard. The storm arrived before dawn. The wind screamed across the ridge as though the mountain itself had found a voice. Inside the tent, the fabric bulged and snapped, snow sifted through every stitch, and the temperature plunged below 30 degrees. Igor woke first. His watch had frozen at 3 a.m., the glass frosted white. He could hear the others breathing, short and uneven, each trying to pretend they were still asleep. Somewhere beyond the roar of the wind came another sound, so faint he almost missed it. A whistle. Low. Rising. Falling again. Not the wind. He crawled toward the flap, unzipped it halfway, and aimed his flashlight into the white fury outside. The beam vanished in the snow like a stone in water. Then, for a heartbeat, the light caught something tall moving between gusts. A figure wrapped in pale gray, too still to be human. The storm swallowed it instantly. By morning, the wind eased just enough for them to venture out. The camp was buried waist-deep. Rustum's scarf had been torn from the drying line and shredded into ribbons that hung from a ski pole. The group worked in silence, digging out the tent, stomping down a new platform of snow. Zina tried to make light of it. At least no one can say this trip wasn't exciting. No one laughed. When Ludmila looked toward the tree line again, she saw prints trailing away from the tent, bare footprints. 9 pairs went outward in different directions, though every person there still stood at the camp. Her throat tightened. "Igor," she whispered, "come here." He followed her gaze. The prints led halfway to the forest, then simply stopped. "Maybe snow filled them in," he muttered. "But the storm blew the other way," she said. He didn't answer. That night, they set a small lantern inside the tent and sat close, shoulders touching. Nikolai pulled his journal from a pocket and scribbled by the dim light. Zina leaned over. "Still writing your novel?" "Just notes," he replied, "about magnetic fields. The compass still won't settle. It spins like something's turning beneath the ground." No one spoke after that. The only sound was the wind scraping at the tent. Then a voice, soft, broken by the storm. "Help me." Ludmila's head jerked up. "Did you hear?" Rustum shook his head violently. "Don't answer it." The voice came again, closer. "Please, let me in." Igor grabbed his flashlight and pointed it at the entrance. The flap bulged inward as if pressed by a hand. A smear of frost spread across the canvas, shaping fingers, long, pale, human. Everyone screamed at once. Igor slashed the flap open with his knife. Nothing but a sheet of snow burst in, swirling across the floor. The lantern flickered, then went out. When they relit it, the handprint had vanished. Morning brought a gray silence. Even the wind seemed exhausted. They ate in silence, eyes sunken, faces drawn. "I saw someone last night," Ludmila said quietly, "outside the tent." Igor stared at her. "You mean you dreamed it?" "No, it was Yuri." Yuri Yudin, the friend who had turned back 2 days ago. Everyone looked at each other. None wanted to believe her, but none dared say she was wrong. That evening, as the sun sank behind the ridge, faint lights shimmered across the horizon, pale spheres floating low above the snow. "Ball lightning," murmured. "Or flares," Rustum said. The lights moved silently, weaving like lanterns in slow motion, then faded one by one until only darkness remained. When Igor finally spoke, his voice was flat. "We leave at first light, back to the forest." But first light never truly came. Only a dim blue twilight, endless and cold. The sky never cleared. By afternoon, the snow returned, thicker, heavier, falling in sheets that erased the horizon. They could barely see one another, just shapes moving through gray air. Every breath froze on eyelashes, every sound muffled into silence. "Keep the rope tight," Igor shouted, voice breaking in the wind. They'd tied themselves together, 10 meters of cord between each pair. Even so, Ludmila could see nothing but the faint shadow of Zina ahead and the outline of Igor's red jacket in front. Somewhere behind, Rustum coughed, then swore softly. "Feels like we're walking in circles." "No," Nikolai called. "Compass says north." But the compass spun again, trembling in his gloved hand. When the snowlight dimmed toward dusk, Igor stopped. "We make shelter here, just for the night." They carved the tent space into the slope, cutting through layers of ice. Inside, the stove crackled weakly, the flame trembling in the draft. Everyone huddled close, drying boots, massaging frozen fingers. Zina smiled faintly. "When we get back, hot tea, real food." "Music," Rustum said. "A radio, not this wind." For a moment, warmth returned to their faces.
Then came a sound from outside, a long, hollow moan that rose and fell like a wounded animal. Nikolai froze. That's not the wind. They listened again. Another moan, closer, followed by the rhythmic crunch, crunch, crunch of footsteps circling their tent. Ludmila whispered, "Igor, something's walking out there." He reached for the flashlight, but the bulb flickered and went dark. Every light died at once. The lantern, the stove flame, even the compass glow faded. The darkness was total. Then came a hand against the canvas. A slow drag of nails, tracing the length of the tent wall. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Someone screamed. Igor slashed open the tent wall to get them out. "Run to the trees," he shouted. "Go!" The freezing wind struck like knives as they tumbled into the snow. They ran barefoot, half-dressed, clutching each other for balance. The forest loomed below, black and endless. Behind them, the tent bulged outward, as if something large was pushing from inside. Then it collapsed, silent. They reached the first row of pines, panting clouds of mist. "We have to go back," Zina gasped. "Our clothes, our supplies." Igor shook his head. "You go back, you die. We wait until morning." They built a small fire from broken branches. The flames hissed weakly in the wind. Shadows danced across their faces. "Where's Rustam?" Ludmila asked. They looked around. He wasn't there. "Maybe he went back," Nikolai whispered. "Maybe—" A scream split the night from far above, high on the slope. Then silence again. Ludmila pressed her hands to her ears. "That wasn't Rustam," she said. "What do you mean?" Igor demanded. "It didn't sound human."
Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had no meaning in that endless cold. The fire died. The group huddled beneath a tree, their breaths freezing to their faces. Somewhere between exhaustion and terror, Zina began to sob softly. "Do you think anyone will find us?" she asked. Igor stared into the darkness. "Someone will," he said. "They always do." Then, from the ridge, came light, those same pale orbs they had seen before, drifting through the storm. Only now they were closer. They moved like living things, circling, pulsing faintly. One floated toward them, lighting the snow in ghostly blue. Nikolai whispered, "Don't move." The sphere hovered a meter above the ground. The snow around it melted in a perfect circle. Then it sank silently into the earth and was gone. Zina turned to speak, but her eyes widened. Behind Igor, a tall figure stood between the trees. Not a man. Too thin, too long. Its skin was gray-blue, stretched tight. Its head tilted, bones crackling like branches in the frost. Ludmila tried to scream, but her voice broke into a whisper. The figure stepped closer, silent, leaving no prints in the snow. Igor grabbed a burning stick from the dying fire and swung it toward the shape. Light hit its face for one heartbeat. Empty sockets, a mouth sewn shut with ice. Then it vanished into the snowstorm, as if the mountain had inhaled it. By dawn, only 4 of them remained. The slope above was scattered with faint marks, bare footprints leading toward the ridge where the storm still raged. The tent was a torn heap of fabric. Inside lay their journals, their cameras, their gear, untouched. Igor turned once toward the mountain and whispered, "Forgive us. We shouldn't have come here." 3 weeks later, rescue teams reached the pass. The snow lay deep and undisturbed, a white desert under a sky the color of ash. They found the tent first, half buried, torn open from the inside. Slices of fabric flapped in the wind like tattered flags. Inside, 9 bedrolls, each neatly placed, none slept in. Boots stacked by the entrance. Cameras, journals, order without reason. The rescuers stared at the footprints leading away, barefoot, in single file, descending toward the forest. "They left everything," one whispered, "even their coats." It made no sense. At the edge of the forest, they found the remains of a fire and 2 bodies beside it. Krivanishkoko and Doroshenko, barefoot, skin blue, hands burned as if they'd tried to pull flames closer. The branches above them were broken 3 meters high, as though someone had climbed desperately, reaching for something unseen. A few hundred meters further, they found Dyatlov himself, lying face down in the snow, his arms stretched toward the camp, as though he'd been trying to crawl home. The others were scattered deeper in the trees. Some showed strange injuries, no external wounds, yet ribs shattered inward, skulls fractured cleanly, as if crushed by pressure. Others bore no marks at all, only expressions frozen in pure terror. But it was Ludmila who puzzled them most. She lay in a hollow beneath the cedars, arms folded across her chest. Snow had preserved her perfectly. Her mouth was open, as though caught mid-scream, but no sound would ever come. Around her neck, hanging by a thin leather cord, was her camera. The last photo was taken long after the others should have died. In the image, the snow is white with motion blur. Light flares in the distance, spherical like orbs suspended above the ridge. And in the foreground, faintly visible between the trees, stands a tall, gray shape. Its face turned toward the lens. The investigation concluded nothing. Officially, it was labeled a compelling natural force. Unofficially, the locals sealed off the trail. They said the mountain took back what was never meant to be found. For decades, no one dared to climb Kholatsiachel again. But 50 years later, in 2009, a team of students retraced the same route. They camped in almost the exact place where Dyatlov's group had pitched their tent. That night, one of them, a girl named Anna, heard something outside. A voice, barely audible through the wind. "Please, let me in." She unzipped the tent, aimed her flashlight into the dark, and saw nothing but swirling snow. Yet when she turned back, she noticed something written in the frost on the inside of the tent wall. "We saw the light too." And some nights, when the storm rises over the Urals, locals still say they see faint glows on the ridge, 9 small figures standing in the snow, staring toward the forest, waiting for the world to remember their names.